All right, folks, welcome to another Monday Night Live here at Pilot Institute. We're going to spend the next hour basically answering any of your questions about drones that you may have, or basically any questions you may have about anything. Yeah, we had quite a busy week, as always. We have another busy week coming up, and then next week we're going to be at Sun and Fun. So this is our last week before we go to Florida, Lakeland, Florida. So if you're in that area and you want to come by and see airplanes flying around, this is an airplane show, not a drone show, but we're going to be there all week starting on Tuesday. We're going to be there flying on Sunday, setting up on Monday, and then the show starts on Tuesday all the way until the next Sunday. So it's going to be busy. We have quite a few people already in the chat. I see Sam, I see Drone Lake Guy with a cookie. I see Flight Media, Curtis Warren, Glenn Bates, Donald Richard, Lou Sebastiani. We have Drone Shots, Gojuru, RC Adventures, Texas Arch Drone Guy. I see a lot of familiar faces. El Kaba, Jillian. I think this is our Jillian from the community. Hey, Jillian. Patrick, Scott Jordan, Jonathan, Times Leader, Video, Travis Cheney. Oops, what did I do? Yeah, well, a lot of people. Sorry, I can't say all the names in here. Ton of folks. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can see on my desk right here that I have two drones. Two drones that pretty much are exactly the same, except one has a DJI logo and the other one doesn't. And this is kind of, I'm sure you've seen some of the videos online about this. This is the Specta Air, and this is the DJI Air 3, or one of those two. It's hard to tell because they're identical. We bought one because we decided to put it to the test, like others have done, to see if it was really potentially a DJI drone or a copy of a DJI drone. I can tell you, if it's a copy of a DJI drone, it's a really good copy, down to everything. The color of the plastic, the motors, the markings, except the ones that say DJI, the software, the firmware on the controller, boots up at the same time, turns off at the same time, makes the same exact sounds. Not only that, but we decided to put it on our camera chart. I'm sure you've seen our reviews of drones over time. We have a standardized camera chart where we put all of our drones through and we check the quality of the image. And there's no difference. I could have taken two images and put them side to side from the same drone, and they would have looked exactly like this did. And I can do a blind test. There's no way in hell that you would be able to tell which one is what. So this is technically a drone that is made in Singapore from a company based in Hong Kong. This is a drone made in China by a company made in China. And so there are some political implications of this, including the fact that this technically is not on the blacklist. I think technically it doesn't have the tariff that the DJI drones would have. This is technically something that a public safety agency can use using government dollars, because it's not a DJI drone that is banned at the moment. So if it was a ploy, and I have no other data, if it was a ploy from DJI to do this, then I'm going to say, congratulations. This is actually a super smart move to make this happen and circumvent the ban that we've been seeing pop up in a lot of different states, a ban that I completely disagree with, by the way. So really, really interesting. It has remote ID, it has DOC approval, it also has FCC approval. So for all intents and purposes, it's an Air 3 that is unmarked with all the advantages of the DJI brand without the DJI name. So I think that's interesting. We will be posting a video, I think, about this. I'm going to read here, see if you guys have any comments. Difference in price, it's hard to compare. Here's why. This we purchased with one battery, which, by the way, the batteries are not interchangeable. If you put a DJI battery in here, it tells you it's not a Specta battery. And if you put this in the DJI drone, it tells you it's not a DJI battery. We bought this with one battery. The RC controller, not the RC Pro, but the one that has the screen. And that's not a package that's available on DJI. I think we paid $1,200, so it's in line. It's maybe a little bit cheaper than the DJI drone, but roughly the same. So I thought that was really interesting.
And as of right now, you can't buy extra batteries.
And at the moment, you cannot buy any batteries individually that we've seen. So I'm sure that's going to be coming eventually. But yeah. Yeah, even the EXIF have the Specta name. I put these two drones in manual mode and exposed them side by side on our camera chart. The results were identical as far as exposure. So the brightness, the sensitivity of the sensor is exactly the same. All the way to the point where I push auto on both of them, and it gave me the exact same settings on auto, which was really interesting. All the way to the ISO being the same, and they don't use like a standardized rounded number ISO. It's eerie. It's eerie how close these two are. So, yeah, I'm trying to read the comments in here to see if there's any other questions I can answer now. I'm sure I'll see them pop. Jason is in the scene back there, looking at all the comments and filtering the questions. So, with that said, let's get started with some of the questions. We have Sam. Sam says, should you replace your drone propellers periodically, even if they have no visible damage? How often? I have some drones that we've been flying for years and years and years, never got damage on the propellers, and we have them. So as long as there's no visible damage, I don't see any reason to change them, quite frankly. Is anybody else having problems getting the Mini 4 Pro Plus, that's the bigger battery, I think, to generate a Wi-Fi remote ID signal? The drone is only 5 days old, fully updated firmware, but no signal. So on the Mini 4 Pro, if you have the larger battery, it should be... Here's my question for you, Glenn. What are you using to verify that the signal is actually being sent? If you're using an iOS device from Apple, it's not going to find it. So you just need to click on the top left. There's a little bar right there. If you click on that, it's going to give you the status, including the remote ID status, and tell you that it's actually broadcasting. Travis says, what are the best websites to follow to keep up with drones being released to the market? Quite frankly, this YouTube channel, we follow all of the different leaks, and there's not a whole lot of consumer drone, if that's what you're looking for, being released that are worthy of talking about. But when there's a new one, we talk about it. So follow the news update on Friday. That's probably your best place. Drone Excel is also a great place. This is where we get our news. I know Haya personally, who's in charge of Drone Excel. He's a great guy and keeps track of all that. Is there a way to make 3D images with the DJI Mini 4 Pro? Any free software? If by 3D images you mean like mapping, I would say take a look at SkyBrowse, Sky with an E, S-K-Y-E Browse. They have a freemium available that you can use to practice. And if you want to make actual 3D images, like a 3D image of this, what was the software, Ethan, you were talking about?
To my knowledge,
Polycam, I think, is a free software that you can use. But I don't see why you would do 3D images on the ground. I'm guessing you're talking about 3D models. Do I have to do anything to activate Remote ID in my Air 3? No, you don't, actually. That comes standard, and it turns on as soon as you turn on the drone. As a matter of fact, the FAA wrote the regulation so that you cannot turn off Remote ID. Thomas said, is it possible to switch between standard and plus battery for the Mini 4 Pro without having to register and unregister your drone, since the battery size engages the Remote ID on that drone? No, it's not, unfortunately. So I would say sell one set of batteries. If you're gonna fly, sell the smaller batteries, and you have the bigger ones, and you register the drone and you always have it and it just broadcasts. That's if you're Part 107. If you're recreational, you don't have to do that, because if it doesn't broadcast with the small battery, that's fine, that's legal. If it broadcasts with the big battery, that's fine, that's legal as well. But yeah, I would say sell one of the two batteries. That's the easiest way to do it. Missouri River Bird Observatory says, good evening. Do you know of any resources, community groups for those using drones in the niche of environmental conservation? I do not, actually. I do not. I would say if you're one of our students, go into our community and make a post there. We've got, I think, getting close to 20,000 people in that community already. I'm sure you'll find somebody else who's interested in that, and then you can connect with them. Javelin Drone Services says, I've been considering getting into FPV. Any suggestion on starter ones? Ooh, this is a tough one. So you've got two ways of doing this. You can start to build your own drone, and we have a course actually that allows you to build your own drone, and I'm going to show you all the different things to do. We also have a free video online to build your own drone for really cheap. That's going to be tuned correctly and fly correctly. It's on our YouTube channel. And then from there, you can learn more. There's a steep learning curve with FPV, building your own drone, fixing it and all that. It's not impossible, obviously, a ton of people do it, but you got to be ready to put the time into doing this. Now, that's the purest way of doing it. If you want to get started to see if this is something for you, this is something that you want to do, I recommend that you get a Nevada or a DJI FPV drone. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to fly a bit more safely without crashing the drone necessarily on your first flight and getting used to it. There's a free simulator that comes with it, so you can use the simulator. There is a way to put the drone in GPS mode to a certain altitude and then switch it to full manual, and then now you can control the drone manually. You don't need to have somebody else with you to help you in case you crash. So it's a good way to get into it and get started. And then if you want to go into FPV, personally, that's what I did. I found it it saved my bacon a couple times. There's the oh shit button on the side. You push that and then it pauses the drone in flight and it puts it in GPS mode. So I take off, I go to 200 feet, I do my thing, I hit pause if I need to, and then otherwise, I can get closer to the ground. So as you get more comfortable, this is what I would recommend doing.
Hey, to go back on that question about conservation, Ted, Granite Defense did a conservation conference last year.
Conservation conference, Granite Defense. Oh, that's right.
We didn't go because we had other stuff to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, that's good. For Missouri Riverbird Observatory, there is a conference in September that's organized by Granite Defense, and that's in Texas. That's in Texas, Burnet, Texas, and I have a big ranch over there, and they had one that was specifically for that. Jason just reminded me, so that's a great thought. Wonder if using DJI for the bridge disaster will help our cause. I don't understand the question. I don't know why it wouldn't. I mean, yeah, the bridge that collapsed. I'm sure they're using DJI. As a matter of fact, I know they're using DJI drones because we saw videos of them using the DJI, the NTSB using a Phantom 4 Pro V2, or I don't know what version, but also the FAA is monitoring the Q&A April Fools. Oh, the FAA is actually, I know several FAA employees that are watching the live pretty much every week, so yes, they are definitely monitoring. Not for that reason that you think, because that's where the FAA gets their information. Okay. Psh, burn. Okay, Cascade Drone Services. Video on YouTube claiming DJI Mavic 4 Pro will launch in 2025 with 8K recording, 108 megapixel telecamera. That's a lie, I can tell you right now. With 10x, 15 minutes flight time, and 25 kilometer HD transmission rate. Yeah, it's definitely... So I can tell you some of those. 8K recording, possibly, maybe. 108 megapixel, not even close. We're at 24 megapixel right now with, 12 megapixel sensor with 48 megapixel, and then 10x optical zoom, possibly 15-minute flight time. I can't believe that. 25 kilometer transmission range, I don't think. Seeing the improvement that we've seen over time, that seems like a big jump. It's also April Fool's Day today, so I would say careful what you read on the internet. As a matter of fact, consider every day April Fool's and be careful what you read on the internet every single day. Can you elaborate on drone shows? Which license is needed and how and where is it possible to get details? Drone shows, drone light shows are using a waiver. It's a Part 107 certificate, but they're using a waiver in order to control more than one drone by one PIC. And then they're using a waiver for visual observer. They're using a whole bunch of different things. And they're using a software. You just have to find a company that has the software and the drones, and then you can buy them from them. I don't know all the details on that, but we did go behind the scene at an event we went to in Colorado in November last year, and we watched them behind the scene. They gave us a quick tour, and it was really cool. Which, by the way, I don't think we ever used the footage from that, Ethan.
Do we have it?
Yeah, we have a ton of footage. Any drone conventions geared towards public safety coming up on the West Coast? Not on the West Coast. You just missed one in Texas. There was also one for drone responders in Virginia. Oh, no, there is one coming up. Well, it's LEDA. It's the Law Enforcement Drone Association. I'm pretty sure they're having it in Oregon again. I don't know the details of the date, but if I remember correctly, it's coming up soon. It's not public safety specifically, it's law enforcement specific. But if you are law enforcement, you might find, you will find good information there. I went there last year, and it was a good conference. I keep pushing the wrong button here. What would prohibit DJI from adding a software selection to force Remote ID to be turned on for the Mini 3 and Mini 4 Pro when using the 249-gram battery? I mean, that's how they had it before, but they cannot have a switch. So it's either on all the time or off all the time. They cannot allow you to change it in the software because that would be against Part 89, where it says that it cannot be tampered with, aka it cannot be turned on or off. So, I mean, originally they had the software to do this, and then they decided to change it. So they could do it, but again, no switch. When using the Air Aware app to prove you're not a robot, it is very frustrating. Sometimes it wants you to go through the same thing multiple times. That's not an aloft issue. That's a reCAPTCHA issue. As a matter of fact, I listened to a great podcast recently of the guy who created reCAPTCHA, and how annoying it actually is. But it looks at behavior of how you use the software, and looking at your behavior and how you move your mouse or how you click on things and how a computer would do it. That's how it knows if you're a human or not. So unfortunately, it's not something that can be done. It's the technology in itself is not great. Yeah, great interview on how I built this. If you need a good podcast, How I Built This by Guy Raz is a great podcast. Breaking, Apple will introduce their new customer drone called the Eyesore. Haha, April Fool's, good one. I keep pushing the wrong damn button. We have Bob Pruitt that says, where do I find the Remote ID serial number for the DJI Air 2? I have the latest software. So that would be in the About section. There might not be a Remote ID serial number per se. If there is not one, some of the software with DJI doesn't call it that. It calls it the flight controller number. So flight controller number is what you want to use. Flight controller serial number. And I pushed the wrong button again. Okay. Texas Arch Drone Guy says, I'll be visiting y'all at Sun and Fun on Tuesday, April 9th. Awesome. After our SFDM, South Florida Drone Meet on 4, 6 through 8. Thanks for sponsoring the meetup. We currently have at least 141 sign up. One of these days, I'm going to be able to make it when it's not the same weekend as Sun and Fun. Unfortunately, we're traveling on Sunday and then setting up on Monday, so we'll be there late on Sunday. Engineer Drone Services says, regarding the Mini 4 Pro, what's the difference? What are any differences flying over land versus water? Any drone, any DJI type drone has a sensor at the bottom, this little black mirror type things right here, and then one of these, this one right here. This measures the height by using infrared, and the technology is not really good on reflective surfaces like this desk, for example, or on top of water, which also can be very reflective. So the limitation on land is that it's not going to be able to tell your height above the land. Anything that's very flat and very smooth is not going to be able to tell you. So be careful with that. As you're moving forward over water, if you're very low to the ground, the drone may have a tendency to drop down and then you end up in the water. Some people have done that. So Vic replied, hey Vic, he said LEDA SoCal is on September 10th of this year to September 13th. So there you go. That's coming up in a little bit. Next, what do you think about Ohio and drone progress? I'm not familiar with what's going on in Ohio. I think there was a bill lately. I don't remember the details. There's so many bills, unfortunately, that it's been difficult to keep track of all of them. But yeah. Northern Drone Guy says, are those drones in Dubai that supposedly carry people real? Yes. Have you seen them? Yes, I've seen them at trade shows. I haven't seen them flying, but I've seen, they're called, it's part of UAM, Unmanned Air Mobility. They're called eVTOL, electric, vertical and takeoff and landing aircraft. And they're real. I sat in one of them, EHang, I think, was the one that I sat in at one of the conferences. I saw one at CES. I saw one at Commercial UAV Expo, I think. They're really cool. And yes, they are real. They've been flying around. There's one in the US called Blackfly that also flies. I think they're selling them to customers, so you can buy one for like 200 grand. And yeah, it's really cool. Look at Blackfly. It's actually a really interesting design. I flew their simulator at Oshkosh, and that was quite the experience because the thing takes off like a helicopter, but you're sitting in your seat facing up like you would on a spaceship. So you're looking up, the thing takes off and then transition into horizontal flight. Then when it does, then you're looking straight forward. But as an airplane pilot, very uncomfortable for me to be at a very high pitch leaning back because that's a stall. And that's what you've been told, right? When you get to be too far lean back, that's when you're going to stall. So it was really, really interesting to control. And they had a 3D VR goggles that you could use to look around. It was really interesting. Glenn Bates, huh?
I think you mentioned that you want to get one of those and start flying it to work.
I do.
That was the joke you said.
It's not a joke. It's 100% true. I do want to buy one of them and just use it to commute. I mean, my commute is 6 miles, which is not very, very far. But imagine how cool it would be. You just get in there, you roll it down your garage, and then you take off, fly over everything, and then get here, land in the parking lot, and you're all set. So, I mean, $200,000, don't get me wrong, is a lot of money, more than I would ever buy on a vehicle. But for an airplane, it's rather cheap. Most general aviation airplane these days are $300,000, $400,000. A brand new Cirrus is $1 million. A brand new Cessna is $700,000, $800,000 for a 172. This is $200,000. That's not too bad. So,
What about one of those flying cars when they come out?
I mean, that's a flying car for all intents and purposes. So I would 100% get one. Yep. Glenn Bates, I'm sure my life insurance policy would disagree. Remote ID on the Mini 4 Pro Plus. The iPhone does show the Blue Mark DB120. Also, the phone shows Wi-Fi signal, but not my Mini. Yes, the iPhone will not show your remote ID signal on for standard remote ID drones because they use Wi-Fi technology and iOS is not able to scan for this. You might see the Wi-Fi a Wi-Fi name for your drone, but that's not the same as remote ID. So the Blue Mark DB120 uses Bluetooth, which your iPhone is able to get. So it's normal that you cannot see any DJI drone or any drones that have remote ID integrated into them called standard remote ID. You're not going to be able to see them with an iPhone. You'll be able to see them with an Android phone, but I don't recommend it. Sorry, Ben. Thoughts on the Skydio X10? I have not flown the Skydio X10. I hope we can one day get a version of it. Skydio has been pretty...
Didn't we get it for a deep dive?
Not the X10. The X10 is a new one. Yeah, Skydio has not really floated them around for people to test. And so once we get our hands on it, I promise we'll do a full review of the image quality, of the flight time, and all the features compared to the other drones in that category. I hope we can get our hands on one at one point. Stybug. It's missing a few vowels in there. Missed my test date, so I'll have to wait 15 days to reschedule. Correct. No. If you missed your test date, it's not a failure. You just have to repay $175, but you don't have to wait 15 days because you didn't fail. You just didn't take the test. Could you please decipher this NOTAM? Thanks. NOTAM UAS operating area. Looks like the Tucson area maybe. Defined as 5 nautical mile radius based on the 31 degree 53 minutes 14 seconds north, 111 4 minutes and 30 seconds west. From the surface to 5,200 feet, which is MSL, mean sea level. Surface to 400 feet, AGL, yep. From 2024, February 29th at 15:15 Zulu time, all the way to a year later, looks like the end of February 2025 at 23:59 p.m. So what this is there's a 5 nautical mile radius where there's going to be UAS operation for the next year, from surface to 400 feet. This doesn't mean you cannot fly there. It just means that you have to be careful because there is other drones flying in that area. So, yeah, and then the coordinates I just gave you, I'm sure wherever you get this from, there's a map also available that's going to show you where it's at. Primal Drones says, did the FAA stop Part 107 pilots from having to retest every 2 years, or is it still required? They changed the way that it's done. You still have to retest every 2 years, but you don't have to go to a testing center anymore. You just have to do it online. It's called ALC 677, and that's available on the FAA website, faasafety.gov. So you're going to do that. Print the certificate when you're done. You're good for 2 more years. Good to go. Do the flashing lights on DJI drones count as anti-collision lights? No, they do not. They're, unless you have one of the public safety drones, like the Enterprise drones, the Mavic 3 Enterprise, the Matrice 30, Matrice 300 maybe? I don't remember. But yeah, some of those have like an actual anti-collision light on top, but no, the little lights on the side are not visible from 3 miles. Would aluminum foil block the remote ID signal? I mean, it works for the tinfoil people, so I'm guessing. No, just kidding. Yeah, it would, but you know what else? It would also, 1, make it illegal because you're blocking the signal you're not supposed to, and then 2, it would block your GPS signal as well, so not really a great thing. It probably might also block the signal back to your controller. We have to test this, actually. Thermal Drone Recon and Imagery says, can you do a pet search over a neighborhood in lightly populated area with the Matrice 30T? I mean, you can if you have a Part 107. That's a Part 107 activity. As long as you don't fly over people, fly within visual line of sight, don't fly over people in moving vehicles, and have airspace approval and follow all the regulation. Yes, you can. Practicing photo. Do you use AirTags on your drone? Most used for theft, but could see the benefit on a flyaway. So AirTags are great. We have them in a couple of things, but keep in mind that the AirTags only work because the other iOS devices, like an iPhone, is the device that's going to capture the signal from those tags and then share its location. These little tags don't have much in them. It's just a chip that is able to talk to any phones in the area, and then basically based on where the phone is, it sends that information and says, oh, there's an AirTag over there, let me update its location, and then you know where the AirTag is. So if you have an AirTag in your car, for example, and your car is going to drive around in a slightly populated area, chances are there's going to be an iPhone somewhere, and it's going to be able to pick up that signal. Now, if you're on a drone and you're flying here in Prescott, Arizona, and you're flying where we fly, which is middle of nowhere typically, and the drone goes down, chances are you're not going to get the signal because there's going to be no iPhone in the area to send that information. Unless you get close to it and then all of a sudden it gets updated, but that's, you have to be, I don't know the distance, but I think it's Bluetooth, so you'd have to be within the range of that specific signal. So, yeah, that's it. Census drone use in Ohio for traffic monitoring. Oh yeah, I know people get really interested in this, using drones for traffic monitoring, but we've been using helicopters and airplanes for traffic monitoring for years. I don't know that this changing. I don't know. Maybe it does change quite a bit because the drone can fly lower and maybe fly longer and catch more people. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see the results of this in Ohio, what they're doing. But when I first read it, I thought they were doing like traffic light monitoring, where they were trying to see if there was too much traffic at a specific light, traffic flow monitoring, I should say. But I don't think that's what it was. I don't know. We'll see if they start issuing tickets. I mean, there is red light cameras and there is all sorts of cameras on the side of the road. Coming from Europe, where you can't drive on the road without having some sort of camera on the ground looking at your license plate, and if you're speeding, even like taking on the highway, you get a ticket on the highway when you start on the highway, and when you're done, you put the ticket in there. And if your average speed was faster than the average speed on that highway, the maximum speed, then you get a ticket because you obviously were speeding. So I have no doubt that these things are coming to the US. I'm not a big fan, obviously, of this kind of stuff, but I don't know that there is much of a way to stop it, unfortunately. Next, what else? Jason says, I still use my Mavic Mini 1. I'm kind of don't replace until it's broken guy. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Am I crazy for still using it? I've only had to replace the propellers. I'm definitely not crazy for using a device that works for you. So I would say, as long as you don't see any limitations. The Mini 1 does have a Wi-Fi connection, if I remember correctly, so you can't go super far with it. The new ones are going to blow your mind. If you ever try one of the Mini 4 or whatever, the quality of the feedback of the feed that you get on the controller is amazing. But you know what? If it works for you, there's no reason to change it. Does the remote ID number need to be posted labeled on the drone? No. Your registration number needs to be on there, but not the remote ID number. Are fuel-powered drones a thing? Oh yeah, absolutely. For years, there's been airplanes, model airplane that have been powered with gas-powered engines. There's been helicopters that have been powered by gas, and there's some larger drones that are also powered by gas. There's even larger drones that are electrically powered, but there is a small motor to generate electricity to recharge the battery in flight. It's a hybrid kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely, they do exist. How does the FAA monitor if someone get permission to fly in, say, Class D airspace in a zero grid, then posting it online and selling it to real estate to post online? They don't. Here's the deal. The FAA is not at every corner looking for information. Now, airports may have a system, larger airport especially, that looks at drones that are flying in the area. They have radars that can find out if there's a drone flying in that area. And they also have access to lens request. So they can easily say, hey, there's somebody flying over there. Hey, let's look at the lens request, and well, we don't have approval, especially in a zero grid. Zero grid are put in place for a reason. They're put in place because there's other traffic, air traffic, aircraft, helicopters flying in that area. So if you're at one of those airports that have one of those radars, they'll find you. Ask Vic is actually in the chat. They'll come and get you if you're in Denver flying close to the airport in a zero grid. He has approval and he gets visits from the airport police or from the regular police. So they'll know. Also, keep in mind, if it's a smaller airport, you're flying in there, they'll know when something happens. And that's the last time that you want the FAA to find out that you didn't get approval, because now there's a full investigation. Remember the guy a couple months ago in Daytona that was in a zero grid with a waiver and that still hit a helicopter? Well, I'm sure they're still doing the investigation on this. And he had approval, and they're still going to, breathe down his neck and find out if he did something wrong. So it's always the same, it's all fun and game until something happens, and then you didn't have approval, then you didn't have registration, then you didn't have a pilot license, then you didn't have this and that. Then the FAA comes and hits you with fines. Is Pilot Institute going to UTAC? There's supposed to be classes and training there. I don't know what UTAC is, and no, we're not going there, unfortunately. It's difficult to try to be at every conference. Every time we travel, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, obviously a lot of money as well. to bring a display and all that. So we're pretty selective about the travel that we do. Last year, we did a ton of travel. I was out of my house for a little over 30 days last year out of the whole year. So 1 full month out of the 12 months, I was on the road. And it makes it difficult. It's not only me, it's the rest of the team that has to go. So we try to be as selective as we can with travel. Retreat Photos says, one of the community threads says you can have 2 registration and sticker on the drone at the same time, 1 recreational, 1 commercial. The FAA doesn't really care for that. What the FAA has said for guidance is that you should have the Part 107 registration on there, and that's good enough for them. So if you have 2, 1 for commercial and 1 for recreational, you should put the commercial one on there. Jason says, what are your thoughts on the Helio getting a waiver for 1 PIC to control up to 3 drones that are over 55 pounds for use in aerial spray application? Do you think DJI will do the same with the T40? So DJI usually doesn't get super involved with waiver, although they do with the dock, the new dock that came out and the old dock. But typically, those applications are going to be done by you, the operator. As far as them getting the waiver, I say congrats. That's not an easy waiver to get, especially 55 pounds or over. I think, from what I read in a couple forums, the economics of having only 1 of those drones flying at the same time is not great because as big as they are, fields are usually pretty big. You're talking about acres and acres and acres. And having 3 of them at the same time, I'm sure is going to save them a ton of time. So it makes it way more economical to do it this way than having 1 by 1. And I know I've seen some comments, we reported on that on News Update, where people said, well, now this can be used by terrorists, blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind, terrorists don't wait for waivers. If they're going to do something, they're just going to do it. So the technology is available. There's a way to do swarm in Autel drones. Autel has a mesh network where they can do all that. DJI drones can easily be used with several controllers as well. So yeah, I think it's in this case good for them for doing it the right way using the waiver and the application process and all that. Keelan says, any tips or suggestion for shooting the eclipse next week? Sorry, I'm laughing because I think I've answered eclipse question for the last 5 weeks now. We've been doing this live. The eclipse, I'm going to say again what I said a couple weeks ago and last week. The eclipse is going to be great to shoot with a drone if you don't shoot directly at the sun. First off, you need to have a solar filter on your lens. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Even multiple NDs is not going to work. Second, your camera focal length is very, very small, which means that you're not going to be able to zoom in on the sun. So all you're going to see on your image is a tiny little dot that's going to be like yay big on the back of your picture, of your photo. The best way to do this, in my opinion, is to aim the camera on the opposite side of where the sun is shining or not shining, and to get a time lapse of the eclipse. Pick a cool landmark, fly up to 400 feet, I mean, if you have the right drone, you can fly for 30, 40 minutes. So the eclipse is gonna last, I think, about 5 minutes or less if you're at the right spot. And so get up in the air and get this transition of the sun going from full bright to slightly darker to full dark. Set the camera to manual mode so that it's exposed correctly for during the day. Get that full transition to night and then back to the opposite side and then make a nice little time lapse of that. That would be my recommendation at this stage for solar eclipse, total eclipse of the heart. Yep, that's Jillian. As I was reading this, I'm not going to say the version from The Office that Michael Scott came up with. Do you remember what it was? Bo back there says yes. What it was?
Whatever.
It was total eclipse of the fart. Wrong says, is it legal to fly over people indoors using the DJI Avata, for example? Yes, but. Yes, it is legal. But remember that if you're going to be flying indoors, more than likely you're doing this for work, right? I'm guessing. You're going to do this for a client. That client is likely going to want insurance, which means that In order to get insurance, you're going to need to be Part 107 certified, and the insurance is going to want to know that you're going to be flying over people. And more than likely, they're going to tell you either, no, you can't do it, we're not going to cover the flight, or it's going to be more expensive. So yes, you can, but the insurance company is going to say, probably not. Hans says, do you have any knowledge about attachment of 4 gas meter on the Matrice 350? No, unfortunately. That's very specific. You'd have to find the right payload that can fit on that gimbal holder. I'm pretty sure the Matrice 350 has 2 payloads. So you'd have to find, I think, well, it depends on the payload that you're getting. So unfortunately, I don't know. That's a bit more niche than my knowledge has. Was the car battery falling from a drone hitting a van windshield a hoax? I don't know. I don't think I've heard that one. Have you guys heard that one?
I haven't seen it.
No. If it's a hoax, it's a bad one because we haven't even heard it in the office. How bad battery can go before it's too late for me to know? Can I test via a meter? You'll know over time because your battery is going to start to lose capacity, so it's not going to last nearly as long. You can also go inside of the battery. On most drones, especially DJI drones, there's a way to check the battery health. It shows you each of the cells in the battery. Most batteries are 4 cells and on typical drones, and you'll see the health of each of them. If the voltage is too different on one of the cells, it probably means it's going bad. So you'll know eventually. I mean, it's just like every battery, right? So Vic says the car battery video is a hoax, a bad one. Okay, so Vic has seen it. Husker the Cat says, am I allowed to upload my drone videos to my social without a Part 107? I'm not making any money from it and it's not promoting any business. Yep, absolutely. Yes, absolutely, it's legal to do. Kenneth, and remember, keep in mind, the rule to determine if it's Part 107 or not is based on the intent of the flight. So if the intent was for recreational purposes, then you're good, you're covered. Can you clear something for me? With a Part 107, can you fly over people and cars to get from point A to point B as long as you don't stop? Yes, but only, there's a big caveat, only if you have a categorized drone. And so many people get this wrong, to the point where I've re-recorded the course to mention that over and over and over again. You can only fly over people and moving vehicle, even as a transition, if you have a categorized drone. If you have a categorized drone. So go back to Part 107, subpart F, I think. It explains all the operation over people. Have you noticed the propellers on the DJI Mavic 3 Enterprise coming into contact with the sensor under the drone when folded? Yeah, when you fold it, it's kind of a tight space in there. So yeah, it would definitely come in contact with the sensors. It shouldn't really affect anything though. Oh, Vic, thank you. Vic says, or you have a waiver. Yes, you can get a waiver to fly over people. You can get a waiver to fly over people. Practicing photography says, how can you control 3 drones at a time? Speaking of waiver, you would need to have a waiver. How can you control 3 drones? I think you're going back to the story I talked about earlier. You need to have special software to do this. Just like drone light shows, for example, they have a software that talks to several of them at the same time. My guess, and this is only a guess, my guess is that in this case what they're doing is that they are controlling the drone on 3 different controllers using automated missions. And that's just a guess, because they're doing almost like mapping, right? They're using drones to spray crops. And so they're going to do it in a very, very pattern-like movement. So they're going to go straight line, turn around just like an airplane would do it, or just like a tractor would do it. So go in this direction, turn 90 degrees, come back and do it again. So my guess is that, and again, just a guess, but that they have 3 drones doing slightly different sections at the same time, and then the PIC is looking right here. They probably have to have a bunch of VOs in place in different places, and then the PIC has the ability to jump from one drone to the next by doing it. Again, that would be my thought on how they do it. Will Specta likely come out with a new Avada, Mini 4, etc.? So here's the trick. Specta is only one of multiple companies that we have seen DJI clones coming out of. So Specta does the Air equivalent. There's another company, and I don't remember all the names because they're kind of very weird and generic. There's another one that does a Mavic 3. I think there's a Mavic 3 thermal, maybe? I don't remember. Jason has the list. He was looking at them. But anyway, they have different models done by different companies. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting. So are they going to come up with a Nevada and a Mini 4? I don't know. If this works, and if DJI is behind this, which I'm not saying they are because I have no proof of that, but if DJI is behind this, the Mini 4 is a very popular drone. My guess is they're going to try, if that's what they're doing, and the reason they're doing it is to circumvent the blacklisting, they're going to focus on the Matrice, the 300, the Matrice 30, and the Mavic 3 Enterprise, because these drones are very popular with public safety. And personally, if I were doing this for that reason, that's where I would go directly, because then you can sell those to, yeah, there we go, the Raptor. Thank you, Jason. Mavic 3 Thermal and Mavic 3 Enterprise is Enzu Robotic from the Raptor. So, yeah. Is flying during an eclipse, am I subject to nighttime hours? That's a good question. So I've thought about that. The FAA has put guidance on the eclipse that I haven't read because I'm not going to be flying during that time, but I should. Because technically, by definition, the FAA defines night in FAA 14 CFR Part 1. There's a definition section which says that nighttime is the sunset to sunrise as defined with the in the almanac by anyway. It's defined in the regulation, and eclipses are not part of that definition. So by definition, it's all based on the angle of the sun above the horizon. The sun is still going to be in the same location. There's just going to be an object in front of it. So my interpretation would be, unless the FAA published different guidance, my interpretation would be that it's not night because it's not defined as in Part 1 of the regulation. So that's what I'm going to say. Maybe somebody else has information. Yep. Vic says they may also be blowing smoke, but I don't know what that refers to. Yeah, Jillian says, apologize in advance if total eclipse of the heart is in your head. It's definitely going to be in my head, and then as soon as I'm done with the live, it's going to be in everybody's head as they go home. Right? 2 questions. My Part 107 expired. It did not because it doesn't. How do I get it updated? 2, traveling abroad. Is it true that you can only bring 1 battery with your drone? Okay, so Ramiro, your Part 107 certificate does not expire. Your excuse me, your currency expires. Why the difference? Because your certificate in itself is always good. There is no expiration date on your certificate. There's an expiration date on your knowledge. So all you have to do to be current is you have to go to fasafety.gov. You have to do ALC 677. I'm going to put it right here, ALC 677, and that's going to allow you to get current for 2 more years. As far as traveling with a drone abroad, 1 battery, that's not true. You can bring as many as you want unless that country has a restriction. And I see a comment from Vic about the strobe, and I should have said that. That was a great point. Even though the strobes are not required, it's still going to be dark outside, and I recommend that you wear them, that you put them on. So yes, thank you, Vic, for saying that. Yeah, and that's also true. Somebody says a total eclipse is much closer to the sky brightness of civil twilight. So I just follow those guidelines. Yeah, that's correct. It's not going to be, it's still going to be a little bit bright outside because around the eclipse in itself, there's still a cloud of light coming from the sun. If we get a total DJI ban with the FCC not allowing them to come here for enterprise or recreation, do you think the drones we have at home will be bricked and not able to fly? I don't think the FCC can brick. Now, they could say, they could rescind the approval on those drones, but then the FCC is going to have to go around and find people that are flying DJI drones and fine them. And I don't know. I don't see that happening. The FAA doesn't have the manpower to do it. I highly doubt that the FCC has the manpower to do that as well. I don't think they could brick the drone from a distance, and I don't think they would even do that anyway. But keep in mind, this is also FCC approved. It's not a DJI drone, but it does the same. And yeah, there's that. Do small toy-type, low-cost drone under 249 grams, such as those sold at Walmart, require trust training and drone registration? It does require trust. Anything that flies of any weight needs trust, which is fine because it's free, easy to do, and it still needs airspace approval. It needs every bit of rule under recreational rule. What it doesn't need is drone registration if it's flown for recreational purposes. But everything else applies. Lee says, please provide the correct information. Is an over 250 gram RC aircraft in class Golf required to have remote ID? Yes, any aircraft, regardless of airspace, that is over 250 grams needs to have remote ID. Yes, it does. What are the job potentials in the US with the Part 107? Multiple. The beauty of drones is that they're a tool that is used in a variety of different verticals, different industries. So you have inspections, roof inspection, solar inspection, power line inspection, you have windmill inspection, you name it. That's just one thing, one vertical. You have photography, videography, real estate, you have cinema, you have anything that relates to this. You also have the ability to do public safety things. That's a bit more niche, but that's also available. You have the ability to do search and rescue, for example, with drones. The list goes on, quite frankly. There's so many possibilities of use. Mapping, of course, mapping is also something that you can do with drones. 3D mapping, surveying, working for a surveyor, doing surveying, or being a surveyor yourself. The possibilities are endless, quite frankly. We see people using them to do spraying of facades of buildings, spray drones for agriculture. I mentioned that as well. And yeah, I need to make a whole list at one point of all the things you can do with them. Can the motherboards on the drone be changed or upgraded? If you build your own drone, motherboard is kind of an interesting term. There's a lot of different components on the drone. You've got the ESC, which is the speed controller for the motors. There's a lot of different things that can be upgraded. Now, as far as consumer drones like this, no, that's just, I'm sure if you were advanced in electronics, you probably could. But remember, this also talks to a controller that has its own frequency and its own language on DJI drones, on Autel drones, and Skydio and Parrot. So it's going to be very difficult to modify any of these. Look, Mom, a drone says, if it's over 250 grams, do I need Part 107? No, Part 107 is not based on weight. Part 107 is based on the type of operation that you do. If you fly for recreational purposes only, then you don't need a Part 107. If you fly for any other reason than Part 107, if you fly for any other reason than recreational, then you need to have a Part 107 certificate. No trust decals for Puerto Rico. We don't do trust decals. We do registration stickers. Actually, we do for Puerto Rico. So maybe we need to update the website, because Puerto Rico, I realized recently that to ship to Puerto Rico, to send mail to Puerto Rico, it's the same price as saying in the lower 48. So, yep. I think that's all the questions. Holy smokes. We never get to the bottom of all the questions. Here's another one. I have a question about remote ID stickers. DJI says to put ASTM F341122ARD blah 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 on the drone, or does it have to say this drone is remote ID compliant? Well, I'll tell you what. If DJI is telling you this, one off, they're full of it because they are the one that's supposed to put the sticker on there. This is a manufacturer requirement. It's not a user requirement. So technically, you don't have to do anything. We put both on ours. We put ASTM compliant, we put remote ID compliant as per, and then we put the ASTM number on there. So we do send these stickers along with your registration stickers. You can put them on there. I went back and forth with the FAA help desk on this, and basically what they said is, you as the user don't have to worry about this because it's not a user requirement. It's a manufacturer requirement. So all of these drones that come out from DJI, they need to have the sticker on here because it's a manufacturer requirement. They don't have them, neither does anybody else have the stickers on there, which kind of makes me mad. So we took the matter in our own hands and we actually put the sticker in our sticker pack when we send them to you. The hybrid drone question not answered. Human, electronic, hamster, electronic, hybrid, nuclear fusion, or in hydrogen, any others. Hamster powered, more than likely, yes, should be acceptable. Human electronic, if you put a human on it, it's no longer a drone, so no. And nuclear fusion, I hope so. Then you can get a billion-year flight time and yeah, be good to go. Just don't crash it. Look, Mom, a drone over 250 grams needs to be registered. Yes, regardless of how you fly it, for recreational or Part 107. I thought I was done with question. I've been traveling around the U.S. and I found a few states with their own testing. Utah and North Carolina, for example. Are there any other states with this requirement? North Carolina has additional testing. Utah, I think it's brand new. And then Oregon has, no, wait. Washington? One of those two. Washington or Oregon has something additional as well. I need to freshen up on that. It's been a while. And Vic says hydrogen and electric drones exist. Yes, hydrogen and electric do exist. Is there a weight limit to the size of the drone you can use for spraying? They keep getting bigger and bigger. So Part 107 has a limit up to 55 pounds. After that, it's going to turn into an exemption 44807, 49 USC 44807. And then you have to get a pilot certificate in order to do this. A real airplane, big airplane, full-size airplane pilot certificate. And that's it, 457. Maybe a few more questions. What about the V-22 drone with a camera? I don't know what the V-22 is.
Is that the
The
one with two propellers?
The V-copter?
V-copter?
Ugh. Yeah, we tested that. No, I don't know if that's what it is. If you're talking about the V-copter, yeah, not great. We sent it back. Well, we sent it back for several reasons. We sent it back because they kept pushing for us to do a review within a certain amount of time, which I don't do. We do reviews on our own schedule, and they kept being very pushy. So I told them, I said, listen, you can take the drone back. It's not that great anyway. It had been out for a while. They really wanted us to do a review, and I just sent it back. So. Oh.
Sun and Fun is canceled?
Yeah, Sun and Fun canceled because of massive snowfall in the middle of Florida. Looking forward to it. I lived in Florida for 13 years. There has been snow in Florida before, but not to a point. Although I would love to see half an...
Like alligator?
Yeah, like alligator tasted in Florida, snow. I would love to see half an inch of snow in Florida. The whole state would be shut down. Like the whole state would be shut down. I remember when it used to be about like 40 degrees. I remember waking up in the morning and having frost on my car, and people were losing their mind, like not knowing what to do.
But they'll drive in hurricane winds, right?
But they'll drive in hurricane. Well, no. People in Florida are not great driving in the rain, just like anywhere else in the country. They have I think I've talked about this to you guys, but they have the mode on the wipers called the Florida wipers, which is the maximum speed you can go on your wipers. That's called Florida speed, Florida wipers. Because you see people coming in, it starts to drip like 2 drips of rain, and all of a sudden, phew, the Florida wipers go on, and everybody has their wipers on maximum speed. Always crack me up, so. Okay. I get confused about flying over people in cars. You said that the drone has to be a class. Are mini drones in a class as class 0? Nope. Thomas, this is only for part 107, by the way. Flying over people and moving vehicles does not apply to recreational flying. There's no exemption for it, so you cannot do that at all. As far as the categories, it's category 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you're not part 107, which I'm guessing you're not because you don't know about the classes, learn about those. We have a course that does all of that. But no, mini drones are possibly a category 1, but there's very few of them that are. So, whew. Okay.
How about that last,
Patrick?
about 107, what are the advantages of having part 107 if you only fly recreationally?
Advantage of having part 107, I just mentioned one of them, which is the ability to fly with a waiver, so flying over people with a waiver. Getting a waiver for anything, you can only do it under part 107. Flying in a 0 grid or flying above a grid number in lengths, you can only do that under part 107. Those are the big ones that I can think of right now. Patrick says, my best friend is planning on heading out to Prescott area to do his instrument rating and perhaps further. If I join him, where do I find you for an autograph and a chat? I don't know about autographs. I think I've only signed ever 1 autograph in my life, and it makes me feel weird. But you can always come in for a chat, no doubt. Send us an email. We'll give you the address, and we'll...
Yeah, give us a heads up because we got time out of office.
Yeah, give us a heads up for sure. He said, he didn't say when he was coming over, but yeah, we've got travel coming up, and yeah, so we'll be this week, next week, and the following week, we're pretty much tied up already fully with the schedule. Okay, this is it, 501. Thank you for, I'm going to answer that last question. He says, flying over a road in transit isn't allowed recreationally. Correct, unless there's no cars on the road, no people and moving vehicles. But otherwise, you cannot fly over people and moving vehicles at all with a recreational rules, even if you have a categorized drone. That's kind of a funny one right there, even though they don't exist. And then, yes. Okay, whew. That's it. Thanks for watching. No live next week or the following week. We're taking a 2-week hiatus. Next week we'll be at Sun and Fun. It's going to be too busy. And then the following week I'll be traveling back from Sun and Fun. I'll be pooped by the time I get home, so I won't be able to do that. So I'll see you in 3 weeks. Yeah, and hopefully we got snow yesterday for Easter, so hopefully by the time we talk again, there's no more snow and we finally move into the spring. All right, with this, I'm going to end it. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in a bit.